Hello, good morning. It's my honor to be here with you, and I want to thank you for working in the field of education and for caring enough to be here today to learn and share your work with all of us. Teaching is such a difficult, rewarding, and truly noble profession, and I'm grateful to you all. My name is Jennifer Geist, and I've been working in the ever-evolving field of global education since about 2001, when I was a Spanish language teacher at a public school in Seattle, Washington. There were only a handful of students at the school who spoke a language other than English, and for most of them, the only language in their lives was English, except what was happening in this classroom 3 days a week with me. In fact, one day when I was teaching in Spanish, a frustrated student said to me, "Señora Geist, can you just say it in real?" Real, I thought. Real, of course. I need to show my students exactly how this language is real. So I invited a few Spanish-speaking friends to come to class and tell stories, share foods, teach salsa dance, and to make it more real. But for students, it was still limited by the fact that they existed, their lives existed in an English language environment. So these special guests were just that, people visiting. It still didn't have that meaningful context that I knew that my students needed. I wanted my students to understand that there were 500 million people across the world who speak this language, and it was more than just having a different word for everything, but rather that they had entire worldviews that we could learn from. So I decided to start using film. At the time, it was hard to find films in Spanish that my students could understand as beginning language learners. But I found a few because I knew that with film, they would get so much context and all of the rich visuals and unusual sounds and the music. They would be able to experience things that they had never even imagined before. The students especially loved it when I could show them short films about children speaking and living in Spanish. It tapped into their natural curiosity, and they became much more excited and about learning the language itself. When Skype came along in 2003, I started connecting with classrooms in Argentina, Spain, and Mexico through the International Education and Resource Network, or IERN. At that time, virtual exchange was extremely challenging and totally exciting. My partner teachers would send me movies that they were showing in their classrooms, and our students would discuss them. In addition to language learning, these methods were sparking deep curiosity and global connections for my students, what we now call fostering global citizenship. I believe that curiosity and connection can be bolstered by dialogue. Dialogue inserts the student into the topic, the issue, for the questioning, the exploration. They're no longer learning about others, but rather learning with others. My work today is all about fostering dialogue, especially across differences. I call it anti-polarization work. And it seems that young people are really hungry for it. They know that this is what is needed in our world today. Young people are naturally empathetic. They want to develop the skills and have the opportunities to practice in real life. Healthy dialogue could not be more relevant to their lives today. The use of media now forms the foundation of my work in education. Many new technologies have arisen to make it easier to connect across the globe, and this conference is an amazing opportunity to learn about them. But in the next 25 minutes, I will just focus here on what remains for me a foundational technology, film. I hope to give you a simple approach and a couple of practical resources that you can use tomorrow in your classrooms for using film to build global competency and dialogue. All of these can be adapted for virtual learning, or almost all of these, by using breakout rooms. So empathy. Empathy is a cornerstone of the GCED and global competency. Not only is it one of the specific targets of the GCED, but it also lays the foundation for many of the other targets as we aim to understand the world and its people. This quote is from Roger Ebert. He was an American film critic who I grew up listening to, and he really sparked my interest in films, my love of films. He says, "For me, movies are like a machine that generates empathy. If it's a great movie, it lets you understand a little bit more about what it's like to be a different gender, a different race, a different age, different economic class, nationality, or even a different profession. A person with different hopes, aspirations, dreams, and fears." So I'm curious, what films have you seen that inspired empathy in you? Perhaps there's a film that taught you what it might be like to be a different gender or have a different job, maybe to be from a different place or be in a different economic class or a different age even. Maybe you can think of a film that helped you to understand the hopes, dreams, or fears of someone else. I think we can all see Roger Ebert's point. Empathy feeds the desire to understand and cultivates curiosity. So does dialogue. So let's get into it. How can we use film to foster dialogue? So to start, we need to find the right films. I want to share with you a tremendous resource called SEMA Academy. I discovered them in about 2015. I might even be their biggest fan by now. SEMA has a huge collection of short documentaries sourced from over 140 countries. They are carefully selected for their engaging stories and authenticity. They are real, just what my student pleaded for back in 2001. They are all curated into these collections so that you can find something that addresses your learning goals. And they're short enough to be seen during a typical class period. They range from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. And this leaves time left within a class period for dialogue, which I think is really important. I think it's valuable to watch these films together and to discuss right away so that you can capture the sense of a shared experience. Every year, SEMA has new films out and that are about what is going on in the world right now. They often feature young people, and many are subtitled. There's even a category that connects them to specific sustainable development goals. Whether you choose from SEMA or any other source, the next step is how to structure the learning to maximize the dialogue. So I love project-based learning as a teaching method, and I've developed a variation that I think is well suited to teaching with film. It's called PARA, and it follows a similar arc as project-based learning: prepare, engage, reflect, and act. I have written a curriculum called the Deep Dive Guide, which I'll share with you the link at the end of this presentation. It's totally free and was commissioned by Doha Debates, an organization that I do a great deal of work for. This guide offers over 50 classroom activities that you can use to generate dialogue in the classroom, and I'll be sharing several of them with you now. So the first stage is prepare. Once you've chosen the film, we need to prepare students with the skills and knowledge to digest and integrate the content. So I always ask myself, what do my students need to know in order to engage with this? What background information, geography, or situational context can I provide, or can they research themselves? And what emotional preparation can I facilitate so that they feel comfortable in discussions about this topic or this film? What interpersonal skills might they need in order to discuss the film, and how can I support those? One key is to begin with low-risk activities and increase the challenge of dialogue gradually. Another is to create opportunities for everyone to speak. The deep dive guide linked at the end of this slide deck contains several resources and invites you to a free course that I offer on the Participate platform called Better Conversations. I'll say more about that a little bit later, but right now I want to share some tools. So creating a comfortable container that does not feel too risky is a key to having good dialogues. Many of us have a hard time getting students to talk to each other, especially to people they don't know very well. And it can be hard to draw some students out. So I have sprinkled in some fun activities to get them kind of warmed up and used to talking to each other in kind of a low-risk way. This helps them to sink into deeper dialogue later when the issues get more sensitive. The Mingle is a goofy way to break down barriers, and it's very inclusive. Be sure to have equal number of students when you do this activity, or you'll have to step in as the extra person to make it even. But you simply get students sort of milling around, almost like molecules moving through space. And you want to play. It works well if you play some music. And you ask students to just wander around the room and maybe dance a little bit, I don't know, whatever works in your context. And tell them that when the music stops, they need to stand back to back with the person closest to them. Hopefully this will help you mix it up a little bit and sort of break up little cliques. But if they go to someone they know first, that's perfectly understandable. Give them a prompt about the film that you think will sort of stimulate their thinking, and give them like 2, 3, 4 minutes, up to 5 minutes, I suppose, to discuss the prompt. Then give them a warning, wrap up their conversation, turn the music on again, have them mingle around again, and then tell them when the music stops, find a new person to partner up with, stand back to back, and when I give the prompt, you turn around, discuss the prompt. You can use the same question over and over again and they just get different perspectives, or you can add a new question. Another tool that I really love for generating dialogue is the KWL chart. This really can kick it off and generate interest, and it also serves to help you find out what your students are curious about. You'll notice I'm really into following students' curiosity. So in the KWL chart, I do the first 2 columns together. First, I start with what do we know about this topic, this issue, whatever is going to come up in the film or whatever you are studying. And as soon as you sort of generate, lots of ideas about what they know and how they know that about the topic, you move to column 2, and what do we wonder about? You do this before watching the film, and it really gives you a sense of what their curiosities are. And then I save the last column until after I have sort of finished working with the film to come back and see what did we learn, and what did we learn about the film, about the context of the film or the topic we're studying. This also gives them a chance to assess their own learning, and it gives you a chance to assess the gaps that you may have had in your learning goals. And it also gives you a sense of where you might want to go next. I'm always gathering information so that I can always be following their curiosity. So now we move to the next stage, which is engage. This is time to watch your chosen film. I wonder, have you ever watched something alone by yourself and it just sort of sits with you for even days afterwards? You just keep thinking about it, and you don't have anyone to talk to about it. It's very frustrating. It happens to me often. And I think it's because films are very evocative, and sometimes we just really need to talk about it afterwards. And as I said earlier, I really suggest watching films together as a class. I believe that we sort of sync our limbic systems when we are doing an activity together. And I think it's also important to sort of capture the immediate responses. I think they're very valuable for the learning process overall. So, how might we help students to capture all that they experienced while watching the film? I use something called the SIFT worksheet. This is a tool that can heighten students' self-awareness while watching a film and better prepare them for dialogue. I ask them to record the sensations, physical, like tears or a tightening in the throat or chest, also the images that they find very evocative, and the feelings that they experience as distinct from the thoughts that they have. I like to have them do their worksheets individually while watching the film, making note of the scene and the sensations, thoughts, and feelings and images that strike them. You might even pause the film at natural breaks so that they can take a moment to make notes. So after they have done the SIFT worksheet, I like to start them in on with a low-risk dialogue. So I suggest putting students into pairs to accommodate those who might be timid to speak in front of a whole class, and also so that everyone gets a chance to speak. Do this by having students share their worksheets and allow time for them to ask each other questions and tell stories about how they are relating to the film. The worksheet, the SIFT worksheet, is a conversation starter. The Think, Pair, Share is an activity where the think would be this filling out their worksheets, a moment to think on their own. And then their pair is moving them into a pair, and then they share their ideas with each other in the pair. And then one of the nice features of the Think, Pair, Share is that you can invite all the pairs back into a larger group discussion, and they can share what they learned from each other with the larger group. In a traditional Think, Pair, Share, each partner shares what their partner talked about. This way they don't have to speak from their personal perspective, but they can share what their partner said. And this is also can be a very low-risk way to get everyone's voices in the room without them having to take the risk themselves. I also think this is a great time to talk about the similarities and differences between people's responses to a film. There's a lot of learning in that. So next we move to reflect. This is the third stage of the para process. And I want to suggest that there's a lot of power in group reflection. And group reflection can happen through dialogue. It's a time to listen deeply and integrate emotions and ideas. They can change their minds and acknowledge new ways of thinking. Individual reflection is also very powerful, so artistic responses and journaling about a film are good for that. But I'm focused here on dialogue. So here are a few more activities. This is sort of a simple and straightforward prompt that I love and I use often. It's called the wow and the wonder. You can use this as a sort of a response to what was gained from the previous dialogue after the Think, Pair, Share. This is an activity. It sort of helps students to keep it short. So if you have a large group, they can speak kind of short and concise. What was a wow? What surprised you about your group, and that you heard in the group? And a wonder. What lingering questions do you still have? This kind of creates this collective commentary. And the wonder can also be very generative. It gives you a sense of what direction you might go in next. Again, following their curiosity. The carousel discussion. This is a great one to use after the wow and the wonder, as you can use it to kind of unpack the wonders, to dig deeper into those lingering questions, and to give everyone, again, an opportunity to speak. It also gets people up and moving, which is good for the brain. So this is an activity where you form two concentric circles. You have half the students standing in the middle circle and half the students standing in the outer circle. And then the students in the inner circle turn and face a partner in the outer circle. So with all the students, facing each other, you give a prompt. You give them a couple of minutes to discuss the prompt, depending on your time frame. And then when they finish speaking, they thank each other, and the inner circle takes a step to the right and now has a new partner to dialogue with. You can give the same prompt or you can give a new prompt. It's your choice. But one of the goals here is for them to get a different perspective from each of the students. And again, you can use this to dig a little deeper. My next activity is called Three Lenses, and I love this. This is an opportunity to reflect on learning. This can be done in groups or small groups or as a whole class. But again, you are prompting them to talk to each other and to own their thoughts and to own their learning. You're valuing what they have to say. And for many students, this can be extremely empowering. The first question is, look in the mirror. What have you learned about yourself? The next is, look under the microscope. What have we learned about each other? And the third is, look into the binoculars. What have we learned about the issue? This kind of empowered dialogue is what students need in order to move to the next stage, which is to act. Social impact films often leave us with strong feelings about the story. And I think we need to give students an outlet for those feelings, as well as a sense of agency, like they can actually do something with what they learned. Some films have a call to action built right in, but others do not, and we need to support students to do something with their understandings. Sometimes I call for a personal behavior change, or sometimes the story or the topic will call for a personal change or behavior change. Like I've had students make a personal contract to conserve water, or to be kinder to kids who are excluded, or to volunteer in their community. A film can also be a launch pad for a service learning project, like addressing an environmental problem or a human rights violation. They can inspire us to look for ways to engage our local community, such as find ways to impact food insecurity or social exclusion. This circular brainstorm is a great way to capture lots of ideas and foster dialogue about potential actions. You place big white papers around the room with some kind of a prompt or proposal at the top of the paper. You'll want white paper per about 5 to 6 students in your group. You ask the students to walk around like in a gallery and just write their opinions and their ideas, add them to these white papers, and then they can put a star next to other ideas that they like that other people said, or add to those ideas. Next, you want to assign 5 to 6 students to go to each paper and to discuss everything that appeared on that paper, all the contributions of the class members, and then to put together some kind of a presentation to the rest of the class, sort of a summary. This is especially good for action-oriented brainstorming or thinking about what you might do to address or take action as a group on an issue. I also think we need to measure the impact of film and dialogue on each individual. How did it change them? I use this simple prompt to get them started on this. I used to believe this, but now I believe this, and now I'm going to do this to make a change. I used to think that immigrants were a threat to our community, but now I know that they are very enriching and able to make contributions to our community. And now I'm going to go out and start meeting refugees through the local community refugee center and seeing what I can do to collaborate, for example. I believe that this type of encouragement and application of learning is exactly how we make it truly real. Again, what my student asked for years ago. So here are the resources that I've drawn upon today. SEMA Academy, the Doha Debates Deep Dive Guide, and also I invite you to my Better Conversations course on the Participate platform. It's a self-paced course that covers topics such as listening, reading body language, focusing on interests rather than positions, managing emotions, and more. There are 8 short videos and classroom activities that go with each one. It's free, self-paced, and I'm the instructor. So we're coming to the end of our time here, but when I look at these global competencies outlined in the GCED, I see so many ways that film and dialogue can teach these skills. And most importantly, students need to practice these skills in order to get good at them. We can really help them to get comfortable talking with one another, even if they have different opinions or worldviews. And this will build the global citizenry that the world really needs now. I thank you so much for your time. I just want to return to empathy for a brief moment and share with you that it really is my deep belief that when we hear the stories of others, our worldviews open up. And film tells the stories of others. And it's in this opening that we create possibility. And I really think that as educators today, the biggest gift that we can give to young people is the possibility of a better world. And I hope you will find these tools and resources useful in this pursuit. And I thank you so much for your time and attention today.